I think of Christianity. You should have given me some information before I came.
Well, I can't say I'm that strong on it.
I'm Jewish, so I don't really know.
I think it stinks.
Yeah, I think Jesus existed and I believe in God.
Because I believe in just one God and not Father, Mother and the Holy Ghost.
I think he's a socialist.
I don't know whether Jesus, I don't know if it's true or what, but if it was, it sounds like it's all right, apart from the bit about women.
I'm not the right person to ask.
I don't want to answer.
How far do you want to go?
Everyone I've ever known who's been Christian sort of really been screwed up.
A lot of my work has been seeing if any contact can be made at street level.
The church army, I don't know anything really about them, but I've spoken to a few.
They go around preaching, saying the gospel and all that.
100 years ago, the London streets were full of people living in extreme poverty and deprivation. They were largely ignored by the parish churches with their wealthy congregations. Wilson Carlyle, a curate in Kensington, was concerned about the poor, and in 1882 founded Church Army, ordinary Christians whom he trained to go out into the streets. They didn't just speak the good news of Jesus to the poor, they gave practical help where it was most needed. Today, Church Army employs over 1,000 people. A third are commissioned officers who've been trained for 3 years and have been admitted to the office of evangelist by the Archbishop of Canterbury. And Church Army still believes firmly in an evangelism which includes practical action. Michael Rees explains.
Words alone are not enough. The love of Jesus has to be shown. And there are places in our country where people are feeling hurt and rejected and despised, and we feel that it's right to respond to that by going in and showing the love of Jesus in our care. Jesus himself, of course, went to places where people were hurting, and we would want to do the same in order that we might earn the right, by our caring and showing of the love of Jesus, to speak of him and to tell of him.
East Ham in London's East End. 20 years ago, you could be sure of finding a steady job in the docks. Now the docks have closed down, and 17% in the borough are unemployed. And many people of Asian and Afro-Caribbean origin have made East Ham their home. They're British, they belong here, but black and white often don't understand each other, and there's racial tension. Church Army cares about inner city people, particularly the young unemployed who are frustrated at having no job prospects. The Hartley Youth and Community Centre in East Ham is one of 7 such Church Army centres, catering both for the young unemployed and the whole community. Tony Tucker is the Church Army officer in charge of the Hartley Centre.
I joined the Church Army years ago when I was a mere slip of a lad of 18, but basically because the Church Army offered a structure that allowed me to serve other people, which I thought was consistent with the marks of the Kingdom of God. In practice, my role as an evangelist, I suppose, is based on actually meeting the needs of the everyday needs of people that live and work around the centre.
The morning playgroup is one activity which meets a local need.
The children, they haven't got much to do, of the day and that. And as I say, it just gives the mums a chance as well to get together and have a chat, and children get to know each other and, play with each other.
Karate is another activity at the Hartley Centre. One instructor is Mick.
I came to the Hartley Centre because the club is, in my mind, the best Ishinru karate club, around. It is a dangerous sport, but we don't make it dangerous for the kids. They don't fight until they're at least 12 or 13.
More recently, we've been trying to address ourselves to some of the needs that unemployed young people have been facing, and so we've been operating what's called the Voluntary Projects Programme in the daytime.
The Voluntary Projects Programme is funded by the Manpower Services Commission. It's designed to help unemployed young people learn skills which might lead to jobs. Welding and motor mechanics are just two of the options.
When people brings in cars, we just fix them for them and send them back out. So we just get all cars, and Ken, he just teaches us how to fix cars. And we're fixing one just over there, a red one for banger racing. So we should be on the road about a month and a half, 2 months.
Others can learn cooking or hairdressing skills. Jackie is a project worker and teaches both subjects.
We try to cater basically for the unemployed youths. Adults can come along as well, but it's basically for unemployed youths. And what I personally do, I run a hairdressing project where I teach them all different aspects of hairdressing. Do it very, very gently, okay?
I come down here simply because I enjoy it, because when I'm indoors I just get bored, I just go and walk in the street, but when I come here I've got something to look forward to.
That's what you pick it up.
It's not just the young, though, who have needs. Old age can bring its own problems of loneliness, loss of independence, and no one to care. Church Army has 10 residential homes for the elderly, as well as short-term houses and daycare centres. Gordon Kitney is the Residential Services Officer for Church Army, and one of his responsibilities is care for the elderly.
I think to prolong active life is our #1 objective. That is to keep people mobile and active, and to keep their minds active and occupied. Horsell Lodge is a home where, in fact, we've experimented to a large degree with all kinds of what we term therapeutic objectives. And so you'll find there's music and movement.
It's really to get our arms and that sort of thing, you know, moving and putting up and that sort of thing. And we love the tambourines, of course. When it comes to making a noise, it's great.
And also at Horsell Lodge you'll find there's a sewing class and all kinds of things. And there's a residents committee that organises days out, and even the menu. But the important thing is that they have a say in what's happening to them, and above all they have a say in their daily life. And so the objective of Horsell Lodge is to run it for the benefit of the residents.
Not all Church Army's residential homes are long stay. Some have short stay accommodation for people who need a break from home.
And during the winter we do what we call winter care, and that's elderly people who are unable to remain in their own home because of the cold and all the other things, and so they come in and stay for 2 or 3 months.
These homes are also places where some retired Church Army officers can live out their days. Sister Kane has been in Church Army for 55 years.
How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. May I tell you one brief story of the old chief?
But the whole of her life is based on prayer, and she's still proud to be a Church Army sister, and anyone who comes within 2 feet of her knows that she's a sister, and above all that they need to know about the Lord.
What have you learned during your training? A minute and a half each.
One of the things that we get excited about is that we can care for people on a daycare basis, and in one instance recently we even had 2 people who left one of our homes to go back into their own flat because the care we provided enabled them to be able to cope with life.
Enjoyed all the fun.
But there are always those who can't live on their own. However, Church Army believes it's still important for them to stay in their own locality. Mrs. Young has lived all her 92 years in the Horsell area. She recently moved into the lodge.
Oh, I haven't been here very long, but I've known it all my life, really. My young brother and I used to come and stand on the front doorstep singing carols. I'd lost my husband, and then I had an accident and lost my home, and I came here, you see, after I'd been to a hospital, you see. Now, if anyone has an accident or anything, you see, because we always pray for that. And we always pray for the new people coming in, you see, to give them a welcome.
Take a photograph presently, he says. So he said.
I think the worst aspect of being locked up is being away from the people you love, is your wife, family, children.
Well, it's been hell for me, really, you know.
Church Army first began its prison work with released prisoners in the 1880s. Then, in 1897, they were invited inside by the chaplain of Wandsworth Prison. Since then, Church Army officers have been included in prison chaplaincy teams. Frank Clark joined the chaplaincy team at Pentonville Prison about 4 years ago.
Well, as a Church Army officer, my job here is to help to show the guys something of Christ's love and concern, and that's what I see as the real heart of my work.
Certain categories of inmate are visited by one of the team each day. For example, those on the punishment section, in hospital or in isolation. And every man who comes into prison is seen soon after entry. Frank also does general pastoral visiting, and any man who wants to can apply to see him.
The first contact I had with Frank was on the death of my father, which I found out last Tuesday. He'd been very, very helpful, very, very kind and very, very understanding, you know, especially at a time like this, you know.
Some men find themselves thinking seriously about God for the first time in their lives. Some become Christians, like Barry. Barry is a lifer. After serving nearly 8 years in 6 different prisons, he's now out on life license under supervision by probation officers.
When I went into prison, I was a person that was basically a mental wreck. I was a person that was having to live on drugs for epilepsy, which amounted to about 26 pills a day. I was told I'd never work, I'd never study, and if I was lucky, I would probably never ever be released from prison. I think life for me was very, very black. I was walking the gateway of hell.
Then a Church Army officer at Wormwood Scrubs gave him a Bible.
And as I started to read, more light started to shine into my situation, and things really started to happen because I found that God was a God of love, that he did care, regardless of men's situations or what they'd done in the past. Christ does care. Christ does offer a new life. Well, to quote scripture, he slaps you straight bang on top of the potter's wheel and starts to remold, to recreate a new being.
Barry was completely healed from his epilepsy and mental disturbance. He found he was then able to help other inmates with their problems. And when he was released on life license, Church Army employed him as a residential worker in a hostel. He comes across people with emotional and psychiatric problems, as well as others from prison.
And I find that my experience in the past is very useful in being able to relate to those people, because I've known what it's like to walk a very dark path. I know that if God can help me and turn my life, my whole life, upside down, regardless of the experience that I went through, then I'm sure that he can do the same for everybody that I come in contact with, to help them appreciate that God is a God of love and that he does care for everybody.
Ask any child on the street what they know about Christianity, and you'll get some confused answers.
I went to church Saturday, my brother's wedding. I don't really know. My dad said it was good, so we went from sort of beginning. And he said there must be someone up there, so he just said it must be good for someone to make it. Something like that. Don't know much about it, really.
The majority of children in Britain are growing up knowing nothing about Jesus or about God's love. Church Army cares about these children and shows its care by sending evangelists into schools. Tony Mainmont is a Church Army evangelist with a magic touch.
I suppose as a child I was always interested in magic, and then I put it down and really forgot all about it. But working amongst children all the time, you've got to look at new ways of presenting the gospel, making it alive to them.
God's like a sponge ball. You know he's there. You can't always see him, but you know he's there. God is always there, and God will always love us.
I believe during their early days, if we can just teach them the truths of the scriptures, so they get a grounding for that, especially in infant and junior schools, so that when they go to secondary schools, they've got something to compare these world religions with.
Out of the whale's tummy, and he swam like mad and got to the shore. And God said to him, "Jonah, are you there?" There it goes.
Daniel, can you feel it when it comes out of your nose? Can you feel it when it comes out of your nose?
When it comes out of your nose, it's very painful. You've got to be careful not to let it go too far up your nose.
My main aim of working amongst children is to be able to introduce them to Jesus as a friend.
So I think God is a good friend, and I think Jesus is a smashing friend to have.
He cures people. In the Bible it tells you that Jesus is all around you and he loves you. He's the king of all the world. Magic. No. Story. Yes. Telling us about a big head.
The single homeless. The usual picture is of tramps wandering the streets. Church Army's work with them goes back to 1889, when the first hostel was opened. But the homeless aren't all elderly vagrants. A recent government survey revealed that a third of the homeless are in their teens and 20s, and a quarter are women. Church Army is particularly concerned about homeless teenagers, especially since the changes in government policy which affect them. In April 1984, Danes Court House in Cardiff was set up to provide medium-stay accommodation for 16 to 19-year-olds. Tom Toft is in charge of Danes Court House.
There are a large number of young people who are homeless, and it may not be their fault. And it is our duty as Christians to help that unfortunate section of the community.
Of the 65 people who stayed at Danes Court during its first 14 months, many were only 16 years old. Most were unemployed, over half had criminal records. Danes Court accepts any homeless young person. Some come out of local authority care, some from prison. But the majority are homeless because of family arguments, and where possible, Danes Court tries to reunite them with their families.
My father just kicked me out because we just didn't get on. Because my mother died a couple of years ago. We just haven't got on now. He's busy running his business.
While at Danes Court, the young people are taught the basic skills of cooking, cleaning and managing their money. Everyone's expected to help with the general chores. During the day, those who are unemployed go to a skills training centre and are also encouraged to look for work. The aim is to train them to be independent adults.
I never used to do much down the house, but I do it all down here. It's good. I've changed a lot because I used to be shy and now I've come out a lot.
Back in London, Church Army has set up the Homeless Resettlement Team. Bob Mager is part of that team, which began in 1982 with a Greater London Council Urban Aid grant. Its aim is to help people like Betty move out of hostel accommodation into their own flats.
We go into all the central London hospitals each week and hold a weekly surgery. We also hold skills courses where we try and help people gain confidence to move out into the community.
Like many women in her situation, Betty never dreamed she'd end up homeless.
I was living at home with my husband, and because of his ill treatment and his bringing other women into the house, I felt I couldn't take any more, so I just left.
When Betty regains her confidence, the team will help her find a flat of her own and help her settle. They did just this for Owen Weeks, who'd arrived homeless from Ireland. They helped him contact the GLC and then went with him to look at a flat in Peckham.
Well, when I came here, I had a look around, and I think it was okay, and I decided to take it.
Soho by night. And there are many who are lonely, isolated, trapped. People who are involved in drug abuse, alcoholism and prostitution. Church Army has been working amongst these people for some time and has recently seconded Barbara Harrop to work with women on the streets.
And I'm on a project which is leading up to setting up a home for women that are at risk of becoming involved in prostitution, as well as discovering how best the church can get involved with ministry with prostitutes.
With Barbara for 2 months was Jane, an officer in training.
In doing research, it's been very much geared to walking the streets of London, looking around, see what street prostitutes in particular are involved in, what their needs are, what the problems, the dangers they're in, and seeing if any contact can be made at street level.
Things weren't going very well. Then we're around, but we're only just at the beginnings of setting up the whole sort of idea of working with women. Because nobody's done it. And it doesn't seem fair that it's the woman that has to come out onto the street. If I give you my name and phone number, if you want to...
One of the prostitutes said to me, "You're the first person that's ever shown any care." Why? And simply to be able to say to her, "I'm here because I know God cares," to me was the most exciting thing.
Barbara spends a long time building up relationships of trust with the women she meets. Some want to come off the game, and Barbara has to be ready to listen and to help at all hours of the day and night.
Hello. Yes, it is. How's things?
All right, thanks.
Kathy is someone who Barbara has contacted. Her story is a sad one, of a mother who didn't love her and who prevented her from making friends. Kathy eventually left her Sussex home and ended up in London.
Well, I used to find fellas at dance halls and, you know, in cafes and all this sort of situation, and a man said to me, "Do you know that you don't have to have sex for nothing, you can get paid for it?" And to me it seemed like love, although these men and that was strange. They'd get hold of me and it was good. It was a way of keeping myself, and then I didn't have to depend on other people. I didn't have to ask someone, "Can I come home with you?" or whatever, because I had my own money.
Barbara got to know Kathy, and when Kathy wanted to break away from her life on the streets, Barbara helped her.
She's kept her own flat going through very difficult circumstances where money's been tight because of a change of lifestyle, but she's stuck with it, and she's beginning to appreciate that God does care, and that's exciting.
Knowing who Barbara is and that, you know, I've thought a lot about God and Jesus Christ. He means the only thing that can save me from going on the streets.
The problems are urgent. The people need good news. And while some Church Army officers are themselves living out the good news among those who need practical help, other officers spend their time telling the good news. Charles Harris takes his faith-sharing teams into schools and out onto the streets.
I see evangelism as trying to share who Jesus is in a way that's relevant to the listener, which sometimes may be through actions, caring love over a long term, or it may simply be through speaking words, almost like a sermon, or sharing what's happened in my own life.
As well as being showing people Jesus' way of lifestyle, it's also direct, telling people what the gospel is, which was hard to start with, but it's very good.
It's made me be much more open about what I believe, taught me how to talk to people about it.
And this is, what's this called? The Bexhill? That's right, the Bexhill Seaside Special.
Each summer, Church Army invades the beaches of Britain to tell the good news. Les Tennant is the officer running the Bexhill Seaside Special.
We believe that in having fun with the children on the beach, for example, and doing simple learning exercises here, it may well help to cement basic points about the Christian faith, so that even if a child does respond positively in some way to the gospel here, then that may be a real foundation for a more mature adult faith later on.
Roger is a Church Army student on placement with the Beach Mission team.
Events like these are a great opportunity to show that Christianity can be enjoyed and lived throughout the week, apart from Sundays.
Beach Mission's been terrific because it's drawn together Christians from different denominations, and to be able to call on the Church Army as sort of specialty group and as a group of experts has really been super.
Oh, no, he can't.
I think it's really good, you know. I think for somebody to actually take the time and effort to come down and teach the children something worthwhile in life instead of letting them roam around the streets and getting up to all sorts of mischief, I think it's really nice.
When Jesus commanded the waves to be still and he commanded the wind to be quiet, well, Jesus can do all things, and what we can learn from that is that we can trust in him.
He can do everything. There's nothing that he can't do. He's your friend.
So I see evangelism as trying to share who Jesus is in a way that's relevant to the listener.
In practice, my role as an evangelist, I suppose, is based on actually meeting the everyday needs of people that live and work around the centre.
I think to prolong active life is our #1 objective. That is to keep people mobile and active and to keep their minds active and occupied.
As Church Army officer, my job here is to help to show the guys something of Christ's love and concern, and that's what I see as the real heart of my work.
Working amongst children all the time, you've got to look at new ways of presenting the gospel, making it alive to them.
There are a large number of young people who are homeless, and it may not be their fault. It is our duty as Christians to help that unfortunate section of the community.
A lot of my work has been finding out what's happening on the prostitute scene and seeing if any contact can be made at street level.